G'day, everyone. My name's Dozza. Welcome to the happy hour and hello to 43 OG.
Hey, Dozza. How you going, mate?
How's things, bro?
Not bad. Not bad. I was just chewing as fast as I could to swallow that mouthful of salted peanuts I had.
That's the way. That'll go down well with the beers. If you've got any Peroni gangs today, no?
Not this week because I've got to drive immediately after this stream. So I'm actually drinking a blood orange and black raspberry San Pellegrino mineral water.
Oh, San Pellegrino, fancy water.
Well, it's still in a can. It would have been more fancy if they put it in a green bottle, but
that's right.
You know, we can live with
fancy
this.
water, but yeah, just bogan down just a notch, just in a can.
Yes, that's what I'm drinking.
That's
Dude,
the way.
What's been happening, mate? What's been happening?
Oh, mate, I'm on holidays. I just cracked my first beer of the day. It's bloody hot outside. Yeah, it's beach weather, that's for sure.
I think today here we're like at about 27 degrees, which is pretty warm, compared to what we've had so far this summer. Like 27 degrees is quite warm. We haven't. I don't think we've poked our heads past 23, 24 degrees all of December.
Oh wow! No, it's been
very mild.
It's been hot and dry over here. But was it dry as a dead dingo's donga? No rain, just heat. So yeah, no, good beer drinking weather, that's for sure.
And by the way, you and me are on a panel on Monday.
I thought we were, but unfortunately, I am moved over to day 2 of the panel, or fortunately, however you like to think of it, because Klaz and I were at the same time.
And you can't do that.
As you know, we are the same person, and I just put on a wig, and so we can't actually be on the same stream at the same time. So no, we only really have like one camera, one setup, like one green
screen. A man
screen.
of many talents.
So yeah.
I mean, a woman of many talents.
Exactly, that's right. That's maybe a joke for another day, but yes,
So I'm on stream with Klaz.
That's right. Well, actually, awesome. On Twitter, believe it or not,
I've never actually streamed with Klaz before.
Exactly. Of course you haven't. No. Because we can't be on the stream at the same time. Yeah, I think so. What I was going to say is sometimes my tweets are actually her tweets because she comes in, logs into my Twitter, right? And she starts putting love hearts and like flower emojis and like retweeting Hexalina and all this stuff. And I'll like look at my Twitter the next day and I'll be like, why is there love hearts?
Are you guys sharing a computer?
Well, not always. Like she's got her own laptop. It's just that she just sometimes uses this computer. And then she logs into Twitter and just starts giving everyone love heart emojis. But it's in my name. So it comes up par excellence. And
because it's in your browser. Like, it's in your browser, right?
And it's like hard to explain that.
You just like that is such an easy fix. You know, just create another browser profile. Like if you're using Brave or Chrome or something. Easy fix.
She just needs to like not use my Twitter and just like log into her own shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you see love hearts from me, it's probably Klaz, is what I'm saying, because I don't give out the love hearts emojis. So yes,
and you can choose. You can listen to the people listening. You can choose to believe that or not.
That's right. Or if there's
I have a sneaking suspicion of love hearts and flowers and those emojis, mate. I have a sneaking suspicion.
Stuff. Yeah, and then I can always just blame that. I can just be like, oh no, it fully wasn't me. That was class. But yes, how are we doing today? Next gen Jex Negex Frank. Oh, that's hard to read, quickly. Anyway, how you going, bro? If you're in the chat, if you're lurking, give us a kangaroo in the chat or a beer or something. Just let us know you're there. It's probably quite late in the US, but or quite early if you're in Europe, but it's the middle of the day here, so and late afternoon for you, isn't it? Yeah, so we're sort of on all sorts of timelines.
Yeah. It's sort of later afternoon, sort of end of work time over here where I am, because we like people listen in, and I'm sure some people are not from Australia, but for those who are not from Australia, we both live in Australia, but we are like our time
Opposite
zone is
ends.
3 hours apart, and it actually I think it's a 4-hour plane trip, right?
It
If I'm not
is. Yeah,
mistaken.
it's a good 4 hours. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's basically like East Coast, West Coast, US in terms of distance. Or maybe not quite that far, but it's pretty close. Do you know what this is? And shout out to Lockstock Vids. This is a clear case of typing kangaroo into the emoji. You know, you get that emoji thing, and it's like, but then you've actually typed it into the chat, and then it's like, hang on, where's my kangaroo? I've done that heaps. Or maybe he's just being funny and just putting kangaroo instead of actually a kangaroo. But thank you anyway for commenting. That's it. Yeah. Just it's a Friday Arvo. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard to remember when you're on holidays what day it is. So I've noticed that with the Hex Late show, it comes on and I'm like, is it Tuesday? I'm like, God damn, what am I doing? So yeah, you're in this limbo land when you're on a holiday where you just don't know what time it is, what day it is.
You're out of your routine. So when you're out of your routine, you forget where you're at. But are you back? Are you back from holidays soon?
No, I'm going down south next week. I'm having another holiday down there. So down by the beach. So
down Albany way.
Not that far down. But yeah. So it's like the southwest coast, Western Australia, and there's just we stick to the coast, and there's always plenty of places there. But you can go to the beach.
Nice
and, yeah, it's really cool. So
can I ask, out of interest, what's property prices? What are they like in Perth?
Oh, it's out of control.
And then
super high.
But then as you go into suburbs outer, like or because it seems like Western Australia is way bigger than, let's say, Victoria is, and we're a lot more concentrated around Melbourne. There's like urban sprawl. But
yeah,
you guys
I'd
seem
probably
like
say it's not as big. Yeah, it's not as, like, people say that Perth's got urban sprawl and this and that, but really, unless when you go to some of these bigger cities, it's not that big. And there's just like, I guess there's pockets. So it's like when you're near the city, it's expensive and then if you're near the beach, that sort of stuff. I mean, everything's near the beach for us. It's like 30-minute drive. It's like, oh, that's ages away. But yeah, it's pretty expensive everywhere. The rental. So what's happened is the interest rates have gone up heaps. So everyone's just passing that on, like,
landlords
to the renters.
are passing it on.
Yeah, just passing it on. So this is like economic policy, like fail by, I guess, the Reserve Bank and other people, where they just assume that that the economy is so simple and so binary that inflation is inversely proportional to to interest rates, and you can just crank up interest rates and inflation will go down. It's obviously not that simple, right? So it's a complex system. And what happens is people just go, oh, if I'm paying an absolute S-ton of, mortgage interest, then I'm just going to crank up the rates. And as long as the demand is there, so because the stock is quite low, there's not enough supply of rentals and places for sale, that people can just keep the prices like high, and the rental prices have gone through the roof as well.
So where that, I mean, I agree with you. It seems like far too much of a basic or oversimplistic way of dealing with things. However, there is no argument that the people who are renting, they're not getting any extra value out of paying more, right? So when they put up those, when they're passed on, because what do you expect investors to do? Like, what's the expectation that they do? If
100%. We've got properties and we crank up our rents. It is what it is. Like, you just,
it is what it is, right? So
yeah.
ultimately, and I've done the same. And ultimately, the people who cop it or have less disposable income as a consequence are the renters. They're the people who, most likely are there because they can't afford to get into their own place. So they're going to pay more, just like someone who's buying their first home and living in it and paying more. So the cost of renting or living in your own home, if it's you're renting from someone who's got it mortgaged. And do you know what the thing is? Even if people own that house outright,
yes,
they're still going to put the rent up because that's what the market. Do you know what I mean? Like even if they're not
exactly. Yeah,
they're still going to put the rent up anyway.
They're blaming on the interest rates. But
so ultimately, those people who live in those houses are going to have less money to spend in the economy.
That's true.
The question remains: is that going to have the effect that the Reserve Bank thinks it's going to have? Like, is that really
they have to balance this? They have to balance the equation with unemployment, right? So when they crank up the interest rates and they're trying to reduce inflation, they have to be wary that the unemployment rate doesn't also skyrocket. So that's the balancing equation. But so yeah, I guess the people who are renting are going to have less disposable income, and they're going to spend less. So retail is going to be affected, and then so that that's this soft landing that they talk about. So they want to adjust the interest rates, either pause or actually drop the interest rates such that you don't have this like massive recession. And I would argue that we're already in a recession, but it's just that the property market is still.
There is an irony in what they do, because what happened on the 1st of January? On the 1st of January, all the lowest income people in Australia who get any benefits, government benefits, they got a pretty a reasonable, I would say, bigger than normal sort of increase in what they get, right? So that's going to help them pay their rent. So if ultimately you're just going to give everyone more money to pay for the increased cost of living, which the Reserve Bank has created by increasing interest rates, what have you achieved? You're not like, they're going to still have more money. They're going to have more money to spend, or they're going to at least have the same amount of money, or not as much less as they would have had, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So look, it's I've always been a fan of real estate. So in terms of like long-term delayed gratification, g'day to Clintrons there. Happy Friday. So the one thing that I actually think is analogous to that's the ASMR, is it? I was just saying, I love you. That's a Simpsons joke when he's drinking beers in the bed.
Oh yeah, I know that joke. I know all of those jokes.
What was that?
Dude, mate, you and I, look, I don't know exactly how old you are, Dozer, but I assume we are of the Simpsons generation, that when we were growing up, we were watching those.
Big time. That is so funny. So what was I saying? I'll just derail myself. Yeah, so like real estate, I think, is great in terms of long-term, delayed gratification as an investment, right? Because we're talking, 10, 20, 30 years for like a mortgage. And so there's a couple of good things. One of the things I like about them is that you, as they appreciate, you get the equity in that house. You can then use that equity as a sort of a deposit for the next house. And then you can keep stacking like houses by using the equity in the previous house that's appreciated. And so what happens is, because if you've just got one house, then when your price of your house goes up by like whatever, 2x, 5x, something like that, and then you think, yeah, I'm a millionaire, whatever, I'm going to get my gold rocket car. And then, but when you go to sell that house and buy the mansion, that mansion has also gone up 2x, 5x. So you're just trading sideways. It doesn't work, right? But when you're stack multiple houses,
extra taxes. You're paying extra taxes.
Yeah, exactly. But when you stack multiple houses, so you have like equity in one house, you use that to buy another house, use the equity in that house to buy another house. And then, so what happens is then when those houses appreciate, if you sell them, you've still got your own house that ideally you've paid off, but that's just pure profit, right? Apart from obviously capital gains and all that sort of stuff. And then, so the idea is then to, if you're going to stack these properties, is to have them as yield bearing assets, right? So they're positively appreciating and they are also yield bearing. So you've got the rentals, right? So, and ideally that the rent covers the interest, even if you have interest only loans or whatever. And, you know, not financial advice, do whatever you want. I'm literally drinking a beer at the time, so don't take my word for it. But if you pay off your principal residence, that is where most of your, you know, your mortgage is, it's not tax deductible, that interest, whereas the other interest for investment properties is tax deductible. So you don't mind paying that because you can end up using it as a deduction. You get good rebates and whatever, you can DJ it into crypto.
So you don't pay it off quicker than you need to. You don't pay it off quicker because you want it to offset like your taxable income.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then that way you can pay down your principal house as fast as you can. But
because we have this thing called negative gearing in Australia, which I'm not sure that they have that in every other country. I know, like in Australia, we have this thing called negative gearing, where if you own a property, an investment property in your own name, and that investment property, the cost of, you know, interest and the repayments is more than what the property is bringing in income, then that can offset your personal income, like it can lower. It's a deduction on your personal income. So that's something that, like, I think they want to get rid of that at some stage. There's a lot of like,
but until they do.
Exactly.
G'day, John. And yeah, so I think that my point was that HEX is actually quite analogous to real estate in that regard, because if it's a long-term play, right, and you've staked it out, it's ideally an appreciating asset. So, you know, obviously you can't control the price might go down, you could get wrecked. But if the idea, the investment thesis is that over like a long period of time, you know, 5 to 10 years or even longer, the price is going to appreciate, then you're generating yield this entire time, just like rental income, that is slowly, you know, increasing your overall capital. Like, it's just, and the beauty of it is that it's trustless. So the code is just ticking away in the background. Well, when you end your stake, it actually just pays out all that yield. So you can think of it as like compounding interest or whatever. Sorry, go ahead.
That yield is inflation in the system, just as when you you know, have a capital gain on an investment property. You know, why have houses in Australia doubled in the last 7 years? All right, because of the inflation in the system.
Yes, that's
So the it's worth more money. So you get more money when you sell it. Well, when you sell your HEX, you get more HEX when the stake ends. And you know, whether that's worth more in dollar terms,
in HEX terms, in HEX terms,
exactly. So we are talking in HEX terms. There is it's because that's inflation in the system. So it's I see that's a very good parallel. But then you have that yield that's coming out, which is the inflation. But yeah, there's a parallel there, isn't there?
Yeah, in terms of it being an appreciating asset that is yield bearing, and in this case, trustless yield, permissionless yield. So that's one of the advantages of the HEX contract. But what I was going to say is, and this could be pure cope, right, as well, like, because when prices go down and it's like, I don't know, I just have like this, you know, coping mechanism. And this is like, you know, if you got in the chat, if you got any other,
nothing wrong with a bit of
copium, just let us know. We're just going to mainline bloody cope over here, as the meme goes with that little Pepe. So my cope is that I look at stacking hex in terms of hearts and pulse in terms of beats, like in terms of the units. So I like set targets where I'll be like, and I know that people have done this in the past with T-shares, like they want to get to the next staker class. They want to go from a crab to a turtle, or a turtle to a squid, or whatever. But I find just looking at the numbers, like if you're trying to, double your stack or something like that, like if you're getting twice as many actual coins, or if you're like, it doesn't even have to be that, like if you're like, I don't want to really use round numbers because everyone's different, but say you're talking hex and you're talking like, I don't know, 100,000 hex, then it's like you might want to get to 200,000, and then it's like, oh geez, I'm pretty close to 500, and it's like, oh wow, maybe I can get to 6. And it's like, so if you're stacking those numbers, then the price doesn't really, you just sort of accept that it's going to fluctuate, and that the volatility is the price you pay for the overall price performance. So, and there's nothing you can really do about it. So if you just keep stacking your bags, then you need less X's at the end. Like, so say you're going to sell in 2025 or whatever, you think that that's the end of the 4-year BTC cycle, and you think that that's going to be where the hyper bull, is 2025. If that's when you're going to sell, then it almost doesn't matter what the price is today, because you're not selling. The only difference that the price that makes today is if you're buying, right? So if the price drops, then it's like this inverse sort of thing where you go, yes, I'm going to get more to stack more because I know that I'm selling in 2025, and that I don't need 1,000x, I don't need 100x, I only need a 20x or something like that, and then I can just pay off my house or whatever it is. So that's the cope that I sort of think about. So it might be different, or maybe I'm just saying what everyone else is thinking out loud. But yeah,
I think that's a really good perspective, man, because it's unlike any other crypto in that there is that trustless element to it. So we're not relying on any third party. We're not relying on any entity. And this is actually a really good segue into what I wanted to touch on.
Sure.
So you're not relying on any third party or any other entity to pay you out. That it's the contract. The smart contract is doing everything. You're running the code, and you're doing it all yourself. You're just running code, and as long as you hold to your end of the bargain or your end of the contract, which is to hold it for that period of time that you decide to lock it up for, and then at the end of that contract period, you have to end stake it. As long as you do that and you hold to your end of the contract, it will pay out in terms of hex. It will pay out the principal and whatever has been whatever the contract sees that you've accrued in that time.
So the contract has been performing flawlessly for 4 years.
Yeah. So and this is why and this sort of is a good segue, because a moment ago you did mention the staker, the animals, the squid, the turtles, the squids,
yes,
all of that stuff, which was originally something that the Staker app or Staker, it was originally a website called hex.live, and you could put in an address, like an Ethereum address, and if there was any hex stakes in there, it would look into the address and show you how many T-shares you had, all your stakes, and then it would also give you like a categorization based on how many T-shares you had. And they would it was sort of like this gamification of your T-shares by giving you some sort of, like a squid or a turtle, or if some people were lucky enough to be a dolphin. Very few people were sharks, and just a handful of whales. So essentially that was a state that then morphed into a mobile app called the Staker app, which used Gnosis Safe as its wallet infrastructure. Now, and it's sort of interesting that this week on the 3rd, it was the 3rd of January, 2 days ago, the Staker app tweeted, and it's interesting the timing of it, because they did it on the 3rd of January, which is Proof of Keys Day.
Right. Bitcoin's birthday.
I'm not sure if it's fitting or there's an irony there, but on the Proof of Keys Day, you better make sure you have your keys to that staker, to that
look,
staker wallet.
I feel bad for people who have used Staker app in terms of their wallets and things like that, if it's going to affect them. I don't think it will, because I think that the Firebun or whoever, Steph, the guys are going to just create a web interface where people are going to be
There's a web interface, yeah. So
I don't think they're going to get stitched or anything. So, but
all right. Let's just touch on that quickly.
Okay. Yeah.
On the Ethereum side, so this is where it gets a little bit, hairy, for lack of a better term. If you're on the Ethereum side, you have the Gnosis Safe interface that you've got as a backup. No matter what happens, you can always go use the Gnosis Safe interface, and you can go and end stakes. You can connect up through Wallet Connect and do all these. You can do all this stuff, and you can do everything that you would need to do for your hex stakes. However, the concern that people have had or have is relates to, on the PulseChain side, there not being any interface that you can use that is not the Staker app itself. Now, this has been an issue since PulseChain was released. Like it's been this has been the case. So there is no, like, Gnosis Safe have not, or they're just called Safe now. They're not called Gnosis Safe. They're just called Safe. They've not supported PulseChain. So if they supported PulseChain on their website,
the Gnosis team haven't got a front end and like a native front end like on.
Well, have you used it? Because what it is on the website, they've just got a drop down, and it's got like 10 other chains that you can just swap over to and use. So it would just be a matter of them like setting it up for PulseChain.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think they're going to do it without a lot of community outreach. Why would they do it unless the community doesn't like?
I mean, so I've had a bit of a play with it, and I've used Staker app, but mainly just to look at my stakes, right? So this is the other thing that I think maybe people are not being, telling the whole story, is that a lot of people use Staker apps, but they could just put in a public address and then it would show your stakes. So it was just like you didn't actually use the wallets. Because I am not, and I'll say this clear, I've never been an advocate for using crypto on your phone. I do not think that anyone should use crypto on their phone. And I've always said that. So if you're going to have like wallets, tracking apps or whatever, or portfolio tracking, things like that, it's okay to put in like your public address into these things, and then you can see what your dollar terms are if that's what you're interested in. I was just saying before that I'm actually not so much interested in the dollars at the point. I'm actually looking at in the units of the token that I'm buying. But if you were to look at the dollar value, and you could put in other people's wallets that you didn't even own, right? Like you could track Godwale's stakes or whatever. You could put that public address into Staker app and you could have a look at it. So I think people use Staker app sometimes just to track their stakes that have been done on go.hex.com. And
so this wouldn't affect them.
So it wouldn't affect them. No. So if you're just using it as a tracking thing.
And now there's other, I think Hex Scout has an app which you can do the same in. So
Hex Scout is awesome.
Yep. So this just in relation to the question that Logi33 has asked, what the story if if I use Staker, what's the story?
I mean, you just have to wait for this front end. I don't know if they've already got it up, but for Steph and the guys to do.
They've said that they're going to do a front end. Yeah. So there's going to be a front end that they do, and obviously people will have to rely on that front end. Now, I know some people on Twitter have asked whether, you know, they would open source that code for the back end stuff that goes on, right? And I think that that's something that is being considered by,
Oh yeah,
you know,
there's heaps of people that are builders and stuff that can smash it out. Like if they, you know, passed on the actual backend code, like if there's a GitHub or something that they can pass
it's not
on,
open
the
source
guys
at the
can,
moment, because there's the concern that I've read
so
on Twitter
far.
was that the Staker team don't want like scam front ends to be put up, and then if there's any scam front ends, they could just like rinse people out of
yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I understand that. But I mean, if you went to like what I would consider to be, you know, a trusted member of the community, like, you know, Alex from Hedron has got, in my opinion, the best front end for creating stakes and ending stakes and things like that. Anyway, in the app.icosa, you know, .pro or whatever it is. That front end is amazing. Like it's you can create HSIs, you can create native stakes, you can mint your Hedron, you can do all sorts of things.
It also makes sense to go there, because if you don't, you could forget to mint your Hedron.
I know, yeah. A lot of people have done that. But so yeah, so it would, if Alex or someone just incorporated something like that into the app.acosta.pro or whatever, then it might just be like something for the Staker app guys to you know, pass the torch on if they're not going to support it. But look, I really wonder how many people actually created stakes using Staker app as opposed to just were monitoring their existing stakes. So I don't know. I mean,
I'm sure that
obviously there's a lot.
Someone with the right amount of skills, like chain analysis, that you would be able to find all the contract addresses that have hex stakes on it. But if you knew how to search for that, or you have the right tool, like analysis tools, you could actually go and find on chain all the Gnosis safe contract addresses, at least prior to the fork. And then because I doubt how much has happened since the fork. I mean, I don't know, but at least prior to the fork, you could say everything on Ethereum, which Gnosis safe contract addresses have hex stakes on them. And you could go like and work. So it's a provable thing someone could find out. And I know for sure the Staker app people know.
Yeah. So look, I reckon Hex Scout, these guys, that website is so awesome. Hexscout.com, and they have all sorts of stake tracking, you know, portfolio things in there. And so, you know, you've got the app, but you can also just do it on a desktop. In fact, I can just bring that up. This is Hex Scout here. So you can, you know, this is the God Whales stakes or whatever, but this is the C5. Can
you imagine if they could somehow, if they had the code for the hex stake, for the Staker stuff, they could just roll it into the Hex Scout website as well, and then it could just be all there. Man. How good would that be for people?
I reckon it probably will. I mean, I reckon that's the type of thing. These guys are like crazy good builders. Like this is one of the cleanest websites, and everything on here like does something as well. Like every time there's like little mouse overs, and you can just click on all sorts of shit. So I really recommend people play around with Hex Scout if you're wanting to track your stakes and things like that. You know, there's so much information on here, and GoPulse as well. I think these guys even use GoPulse.
As far as an overall portfolio tracker, I feel like GoPulse is superior. But when you're talking about pure hex metrics, nothing beats Hex Scout.
With those two, you know, you can't go wrong. Like
for RH ecosystem, you can't go wrong with those two. That's everything you need.
there's so much cool shit on this as well. You know, they've got the faucet, I think now, which is really cool. Yeah, so you can just literally, how's that? You can claim PLS every hour. So you can go to the portfolio. Did that just not click on it? Okay, cool. You can go to your portfolio, you add in public address wallets.
Whoa.
You don't have to connect.
Is that 7,800? 7,800 wallets fund. I looked at it yesterday and it was like 500 or something.
Yeah, no shit. Okay,
wow,
1.5 milli. So someone's figured out how to do a bot to claim it. Yeah, so I think, what is it, 100 PLS? So I like the coin list, you know, shout out to coin list as well. This is the coin. No, that's not what I want. Coin list. What is that? That's not the right thing. What am I thinking of? Coin, Pulse coin. Oh, fuck me. Sorry, what's the site I'm thinking of? Pulse coin list. Sorry, coin lists or Pulse coin list for butchering that. So yeah, I would say Hex Scout, Go Pulse, and Pulse coin list. So these guys have got some crazy awesome stuff as well. You know, comparing we've talked about this in the past, comparing the ERC20s to PRC20s. They've got this bridge buddy thing, which if you bridge in and you've got no pulse, they give you like 1,000 pulse. So yeah, Pulse coin list are awesome. They've got some cool shit. Go Pulse, very cool. They've got their own faucet. Now, the advantage of this is that, you know, we were talking about in the past where sometimes, you know, if people are using mixers or whatever, one of the problems is getting a relayer to actually get some gas on the other side. But a faucet basically solves that. So you don't have to like dox an account by sending it gas from other accounts when you've got a faucet. So I know it's only 100 pulse, but
that solves
these days,
the Hurry Cash problem, right? Because they had the relayer. I wonder if Hurry Cash are onto that.
Bro, I don't know. Someone's gonna have to tell me what's going on with Hurry Cash, because I got banned from their Telegram.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I get banned from Telegrams. I don't know. It's like,
why?
I don't even do anything wrong. Okay, in this case, I literally asked, did Hurry Cash rug or what?
Motherfuckers.
Yeah, that was my question. Motherfuckers.
Yeah,
what's up in this here?
The motherfuckers at the end, and they probably
and I was just like, did you motherfuckers rug or what? So I think I may have said something like that and just insta banned. I was like, come on. I just asked you whether you rugged.
Look, as far as I know, the contracts work. The code works, right? They don't need to do anything for the code to work. The only thing that needed to happen was there needed to be a relayer to pay for the transaction costs. But if you
relayer worked. The relayer worked. It was a bit of dicking around, but you could get it to work.
It used to work.
So I don't know. Like ever since I got banned from that Telegram, I was just like, fuck you guys. Like, you know, sorry to be, you know, but like, I guess it was my fault for maybe being slightly aggressive with the question of like whether they rugged. But it's like, you know, they don't update their Twitter. They don't update. I don't know what's going on. I mean, especially like for people who sacked, it's like, you know, what is even going on there? I don't know. I just think that like some of these guys that took sacrifice money, you know, and they had 2 years to get their shit together, and they've had another 6 months now, PulseChain. It's like it's time. If you got a sacrifice and you haven't launched, then people are going to be asking questions like, and then you can't just then get so insulted, like, how dare you ask if I rugged? You know, I'm going to ban you. It's like, of course I'm going to ask that, because there's no communication from your team. So
what's interesting is there's going to be a new privacy protocol on Ethereum called Nocturne, and it's gonna have like it's gonna have like private accounts and stealth addresses. So essentially, you and this is the way I understand it. I'm going to give a very, very quick overview, which is there's this contract, and you put funds into a private address, which then you can see the amount that goes in there, but it goes into this like pool of funds, pool of assets, and you have to prove what part of the pool is your own when you go to withdraw.
Awesome.
Oh, that's cool. It's like smart contracts and stuff, and it's interesting because unlike the original like Tornado Cash, this is completely different to that. This is like more like the ZK Money one that was around a year or so ago, and then there was Tornado Cash Nova that was around, and this is sort of in that same vein. But I think this sounds better. This sounds better because you can just generate like lots of stealth addresses from the one key pair that you have, from what I understand. But it's still early. I think they're still in alpha or something.
Okay, so they don't support PulseChain just yet.
No, they don't. But that was I was getting to that.
Yeah.
If it's open source, like I don't know, I assume it's going to be open source because it's funded. Like Vitalik sort of had something to do with it as well, as far as funding goes. So if that is the case, it's very likely to be open source. And if it's open source, then there's no reason why it couldn't be deployed on PulseChain as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, man. I mean, even people could fork it and do things like that. That sounds really cool. I don't know enough about it, so I'd have to check it out, but it sounds promising. The block blend guys, what was the name again? So I think you said it was Nocturne. If you've got a link, stick it in the chat.
I'll give you bring up the website, dude.
Yeah, I just tried to find it, but I've pulled up some sort of Chopin's Nocturne E flat major, so that's not helping anyone.
No, that's not it.
That's some Chopin for anyone who's into some crazy piano. I don't know what is it like. Nocturne.io. I mean, maybe you have to tell me.
I'm just gonna look it up, man. I'm gonna find.
Well, I was just going to also say the block blend guys came on. I don't even have that up. They went on. Oh wow, this is really slowing my computer down. They went on Corey Costa's stream very recently, actually. Yeah. So I'm just gonna have to turn that off. That's not working. The block band guys, I think what they've done is they're making a 0% fees for people to bridge in. So it's kind of like the regular Pulse bridge. Like if you go, pulsechain.com and you go to the bridge, use the IPFS links, like the latest ones, you pay the Ethereum gas fee, but you won't pay a fee, like a 0% fees on the main bridge from Ethereum to PulseChain. I think that the block blend guys are doing it 0% fees for like a week, like maybe just 1 week. But they were on Corey Costa's stream. So shout out to Corey Costa. Check out his channel. He's got some cool shit on there. And he always interviews like, different protocols and things like that. So it gives you an idea. But yeah, I think we talked about block blend a couple of weeks ago because apparently they had like, I thought it was like 54%, but apparently it's up to 80% of their traffic is actually going to PulseChain now. So a lot of people are doing, Yeah. So a lot of people using it for cross-chain swaps. And I think in the sense that it's a private, cross-chain swap, it's just that it goes into a big pool and then you just wait a certain amount of time and then eventually like it swaps it with the other asset on the other end. And then so there's some level of obfuscation because
But you're
you don't
trusting them.
know. Oh yeah. There's trust in it. So I mean, I'm not advocating it for like that reason, but I'm just saying if you are
That would be like any cross-chain swap, though. That would be like any
I suppose so.
cross-chain
And
swap.
it's kind of like even just liquidity. And I talked about this ages ago with Bluey, I remember, and maybe Tangent. And I was just like, when you send stuff into a pool, like maybe there could be some sort of protocol where it's like, you send your assets to a liquidity pool and then you could get basically, I can't remember how I had it in my head where I was just like, the liquidity pool is effectively a mixer, right? Because you're just getting LP tokens, and then at some point they could pass those LP tokens on to someone else who could get the withdraw the liquidity from that pool.
You're making an assumption.
Broken.
You're making the assumption that these LP, like these NFTs, right? We're talking about NFTs.
Well, that in that case, it was just an LP token. So, like, if you added to a pool, with two assets, and you get a set of LP tokens, it could be an NFT form, or it could just be.
You don't think that the NFT tokens like have no, that can be tracked because you can see where it came from. That token was generated.
Yeah. It was just an idea that I had in a sense.
It's a good idea. Do you know why it's a good idea, Dozer? It's a good idea because it's essentially what Nocturne does, but it does it via stealth addresses. Like it's essentially what you've just described of it being a pool is what Nocturne does, but it does it behind private addresses, right? So, mate, brilliant thought that you had. I actually put the link.
I talked about that like probably over a year ago, or
must
maybe
have been listening,
6 months
mate.
or something. And it was just an idea that I had, and I was just like, I wonder if that would work. And I think there was maybe there was a few things like, that maybe wouldn't work because, like you say, like the LP tokens, depending on how they're,
it can be tracked where it was generated originally.
And I was just like, it was just an idea. Like, I think I literally had it while I was eating lunch or something. And I was like,
I put a link in the private chat here. I'm not sure if you can bring it up.
Yeah, man.
And we can have a look at. So it's still in beta, right? This Nocturne.
I hope this doesn't slow down my shit too much because, it's just asking me to, click some sort of thing. So yeah, that's all right to do it in the private browser. Yeah, and I'll close some of these other tabs. I've got direct Ethernet now, so I'm not using Wi-Fi. So hopefully it doesn't slow my shit down too much. So yeah, Nocturne. There you go. It was app.nocturne.xyz. So
it is in beta, so I don't think you can do. But what's interesting is, as far as I know, from what I've understood, is that once things are in a stealth address, you'll still be able to use things like Uniswap, like swapping, because even though it's in the stealth address. So I'm not sure if that's exactly how it's going to end up working, but that was my understanding of how they that stuff would, how it works. And then on the other side, it's always provable. Like, so if there's you have to prove something for, whatever reason, you can give people like proof, zero knowledge proof. That's the whole point. Yes. It's like zero knowledge proof, I'm not sure if you've heard like an explanation that explains how zero knowledge proof, like how it sort of works.
Yeah, I have a basic understanding of how it works. Yeah.
You would have a better understanding of me, but I heard a really good explanation of how it works, which I'll share because I think it will explain it to the layman like me quite well. So essentially, it's as if like we're looking at a Where's Wally book,
Right.
right? I know where Wally is, you don't, right? I need to prove to you that I know where Wally is without showing you where Wally is. So how do I do that? So the explanation is, it's like I get a big bit of paper, I cut a little hole on it, right? And then I hold it over the book, and then you can see Wally's face. I show you Wally's face, you can see it, but you have no idea. I mean, this is just an explanation so that we can understand what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And then you can see
that
Wally's
you know
face.
where Wally is without.
I know where Wally is, but you only know that you can only see that I know where it is, where he is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I get the analogy. Yeah.
That explained it to me. That's how I understood it.
Yeah. So I've heard a few different ways of explaining it, and they're all basically exactly that. So it's just a way of giving information to someone to say that you could so say in the case of crypto, so where we're talking about like transactions and things like that. So you're saying that you can verify a transaction without actually giving away any information about that transaction, or you can verify some piece of knowledge without giving away or proving that what the solution is without giving away any other information about that set of addresses
it's so interesting. I've been reading about this like all afternoon, and it's like that's related to the append only like nature of the data structure that's being used. Like it's not going back to the original data point and updating that. It's appending the new data, and just which I guess implicitly means that the old data is no longer usable. That's sort of
there's some really cool stuff. It's been a while since I looked into it, and I was going to say, for people, just check out like Wikipedia and shit like that. There's actually a lot of information on this sort of stuff. It's been a while, because it's like I sort of understand the concept of zero knowledge proofs and how they can be used. And I was looking into zero knowledge roll ups and other things like that. And there's lots of examples of so to get you to understand that. Also, there's this Byzantine fault with the Byzantine generals. There's some really interesting analogy as well. It's been a while since I looked at it, but it was like, have you heard that one, when there's like multiple generals that are like trying to storm a castle, and it's like if they all attack it from all sides, then they'll be able to defeat the people in the castle. But if any one of them doesn't attack at the same time or whatever, then the whole army will like lose the battle. So they need some way of like communicating in a way that like doesn't give away, so there's some example with the Byzantine generals and things like that. It's really interesting.
And this is a solution, and that's what Bitcoin consensus was, a solution for that.
That's right. That's the
what
double
it was
spend thing as well, wasn't there? There was some, it might be similar to that.
Yeah.
But check it out, people. The Byzantine generals problem, and there's some cool shit in there that like,
So there was no solution to this for the longest time. And
that's right.
And then that's what this stuff has. There's solutions now to this, and that's been done through things like Bitcoin. It's been achieved, is my understanding.
Yeah. So I mean, people can read this in their own time, but there's some cool shit. It's worth knowing about. So the zero knowledge proofs, I'm not sure how we got onto that.
We were talking about Nocturne.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And stealth addresses.
That's right. And other things, and block blend. So I don't know about block blend, but they seem to be sort of embracing the PulseChain community. So that's pretty cool. And the 0% fees thing, I think, is good in terms of bridging. but I suppose we've kind of got that anyway. Oh, that's right. That's what I was going to talk about. We're talking about the NFTs, and we were sort of saying, like, the NFTs to represent your position in a liquidity pool. They've also got this thing now. David Feeder has been talking about it. I think he's actually working with the guys, which is an NFT to represent a stake in a validator.
Yep.
So have you heard about this DGen protocol thing?
I have. I heard about it, but I haven't, I haven't gone deep into it.
Yeah, I'll just pull it up. I don't know much about it either. So, excuse me, I don't want to be like, talking it up too much in case, but David Feeder is obviously a very trustworthy sort of community member. And so it seems like they're basically doing exactly what I said, is basically, an NFT which represents a portion of a validator. So if you don't want to set up your own validator and you don't want to, learn about all the, Linux and all the different stuff that you might have to do to get that going. You can just go to the validator store thing that Feeder runs, and they actually do like a prepackaged, turnkey solution. But this might be another way to just own an NFT, which is effectively got, a portion of a validator. So yeah, I kind of thought that was cool. But yeah, I haven't used it. So
definitely.
I can't really, endorse it if I haven't.
Yeah, I'm the same. I know David Feeder's been in and around the community since the beginning, pretty much, and he builds validators. He's got validator store, and he builds PulseChain validators and helps you set it up and does all this technical stuff. And now this is the I guess the next step for them is to actually, if someone doesn't want to run the hardware, they're coming up with this protocol where you can just have be a validator by owning a percentage of a validator stake, I guess, which is interesting. But once again, I don't know. I haven't vetted it. I haven't. I haven't seen any. I haven't read any audits. I don't know about it, and I'm being very, very careful with everything nowadays for the exact reason, like for the whole staker reason, because the staker, for example, and I'll just bring it back to that for a second. They were running the background infrastructure for the PulseChain side of things. Now, without them running that infrastructure, you don't have access to stakes on PulseChain.
Yeah, good point.
That is problematic.
It adds an element of trust in there, doesn't it?
Yeah. So people just have to know. And once again, I don't know what's going to be entailed in this this new thing. But always, I'm all ears. Always.
So look, this is a disclaimer. I don't even really need to have to say it, but I think you would agree with this 43 OG, is that sometimes we talk about things, protocols or whatever, on this channel, and it's like, this is some cool shit for you to go and check out, like for you to go and literally do your own research, like make you aware of it if you're interested in it. We're not getting paid by any of these guys to shill their shit, so we don't really care whether you do it or not. It's just like, we're just saying, oh, this is some cool stuff that I found during the week or whatever. Check it out. I'm not necessarily endorsing it, and in particular, I do not endorse things that I've never used. So if there's things like that, I might say, oh, look, block blend is good or whatever, maybe it looks good, but if I've never used it, I can't actually say that it's good. So I might make people aware of it, but if I haven't used it, I can't, like say PortalX. I've used PortalX cross-chain swaps, like for bridging between chains, and I found it to be really good. So I can say that. But then there's certain things that I might know about, but I've never used it, so I can't really claim that it's the bee's knees.
Yep.
So yeah,
that's a good That's a good point. There's a couple of questions there that Logi33 has posted. Maybe you want to have a look at that. What was the first?
So,
was there one before that?
I just said, what was the story? Oh yeah, maybe I missed this one. Hex ETH end stake so expensive, $73. Yeah, for a swap.
$73 to 1 cent by comparison on Pulse. Yeah.
Oh, to end stake. Okay, yeah. So that's proportional to, but even swaps and things on Ethereum can be like upwards of like $60. Like when the Gwei starts going high, you can pay like, and that's the whole reason why PulseChain was invented,
like
right?
crazy high price. I mean, we're still we're just even the price, the price of Ethereum. Like, so at an all-time high, if it's $73 now at an all-time high, that's going to be $150. And then on top of that, if there's real like congestion, you could be hundreds of dollars to do that one. I remember seeing people in the last bull market end staking and it being hundreds of dollars, like being $700-800, like $900 on Ethereum,
big time
to end stake.
It's only 14 Gwei at the moment. It's only 14 Gwei. I remember seeing 150 Gwei, 180 Gwei, and if you could get less than 80 Gwei, or like, it was like, holy shit, quick. Now it's time to do your transactions, end your stakes, because it's down to 40 Gwei or something. So yeah, people do realize that we're still pretty early in the cycle. And when things start going apeshit, then the Gwei is just going to go through the roof until they sort out this proto dank sharding, or dank sharting, as I like to call it. I think the gas is going to be terrible on Ethereum, and that's going to point to other people to start using some of these L1s other than Ethereum, including PulseChain, because people are going to be like, hang on a tick, if I can just spend like a penny, or a cent to like do a swap, and all my shit is over here, and then I can send it and do, well, why wouldn't I? And plus, you've got 0% fees to bridge in.
This is why PulseChain exists. PulseChain exists for this very let's not get it confused.
Yeah,
let's not get it confused. PulseChain exists because Ethereum fees suck.
We're out of control.
That's why if Ethereum fees did not suck, PulseChain would not exist.
It wouldn't it wouldn't need to exist. Exactly. Yeah. The reason why it needs to exist is because there's a lot of protocols out there, not just Hex, that might be gas intensive. And it's like, you don't want to be paying, and people DCAing, right? This is the other thing. People who wanted to put in $100 here, $200 here and there, they don't want to pay $100 for a swap to put in $100. Like,
yep.
I mean, it's not how I do things. Like, I tend to sort of just like wait for dips and things like that. So, and this is something that I maybe haven't talked about, but so say if you have like a hedge bag or something like that. So if you've got some other, or you're just interested in other protocols, and then that one starts like mooning, like absolutely just going ridiculously parabolic, you need to take some profits from something like that, and you can put it in stables. And then when you see like one of your other things that starts going down and it's just getting wrecked because someone's EES'd and just dumped their shit, then you can buy that dip because you've got some stables. Like that's how I sort of like to do it, is to, when things are getting out of control high, then I just shave some off the top, and then I keep it in stables until I can see a massive dip, and then I buy that shit. So that's one way of doing it. But some people just like to, chip away and just buy like, $100 a week or whatever. So that is untenable if you've got, $60 swaps and you would have put in $100. So that's why, PulseChain solves this. And I think that's why in that hyper bull period of the cycle, people will turn to these much more, PulseChain and other L1s.
Just on that, on the topic of end stakes, we were talking about houses and loans earlier on. Have you ever
Yes.
discharged a loan with a bank? Have you ever discharged a loan with a bank? So
when I've refinanced, I guess I have.
So a discharge could be, anywhere
paid off like
between
a full
like a
house
couple of
or anything.
$100 to $1,000, like to discharge a loan, which is essentially paying off a loan completely.
Yes.
Depending on the institution and what you sign up to,
Yeah.
between a couple of $100. Usually they charge you something to pay out the loan. There's paperwork involved and whatever. So on their end, there's paperwork, so they charge you something. So essentially, if you're paying like $500 to $1,000 to discharge a loan, I guess that's sort of on Ethereum what you when you end a stake, you're sort of discharging a loan. It's as far as fees go. There's my cope. Yeah. There's my cope for the day. Yeah.
Look, so when I was talking about one asset going up, crazy, and then taking some profit, and then waiting for another asset to dip, that idea can still be extended to real estate as well, right? Because real estate cycles are very similar to like crypto cycles in the sense that you have this parabolic run, and then like you have boom and bust cycles and things like that. So you can do shit like that where you are taking money, say from crypto, and so say you're getting like 2025, whatever that bull market hyper bull period, the BTC halving cycle is peaking in 2025, and you're taking money out of crypto and you're putting it into real estate, paying off your house, like your mortgage, then it's a ratio of like crypto to real estate. So you're, if you're looking at like ETH versus BTC, you're basically playing the cycles where you take money out of one system and you put it into another system and then when the real estate market starts getting like overheated and just crazy and the prices is through the roof and shit, then you can sell a house and you can DCA into a crypto bottom into a bear market. So you got to try and think about things in terms of ratios of the asset you hold versus the asset you want to purchase. And considering that different assets have different cycles, and you basically want to just take the top of one cycle and put it into the bottom of another.
It's interesting you say that,
believe
man.
in these assets.
It's interesting that you say that, because I know someone who just very recently sold a property for this exact reason. Not exact. It wasn't to like go into crypto, but they sold it because they looked at the price. They looked at the market, the value of the property. They looked at how much it was earning. They looked at the increased costs of repayments, right? And they said, and they're like, okay, well, not just repayments for that, but for all of their loans that they had, right? They looked at all of their loans and they're like, well, this one property is going to pay off all of my loans, right? And then they decided that like, okay, well, I'm better off selling this property because we're still pretty close to all-time highs in the property market. We're not that far off. I think, maybe 10% off the top or of whatever, but it was going to cost them the amount of extra money that it was going to cost them was they would have, and if they wanted, that was the only property that they were willing to part with. So they worked out that it was the value of the property would have to go up by 50 grand a year just to cover the interest, the extra amount of interest that they're. So it was just for them, they just made that, and that might be the wrong, under certain circumstances, that may be the wrong way to go about it. But for them, that was the perfect way for them to go about it. They got rid of all their debt, and they got one house less, but they have no debt. So they've got
that's enticing. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's definitely good debt and bad debt, and racking up credit card debt and things like that is obviously bad. But if you've got debt in real estate, you can actually borrow against it, like an equity loan. And not financial advice, I'm not a tax accountant, but I'm pretty sure equity loans are not tax deductible, like they're not taxable. So you're not paying interest on that loan. It's not, because you're not actually selling the asset. So
you'll pay interest on the loan. You just won't pay tax.
Oh yeah, you pay interest on, you don't pay tax on it. Yeah.
Yep.
You obviously pay interest on the equity loan, but you don't pay tax on the equity loan. So that's one way of.
And the argument is that if the yield that's being generated by that asset is covering the interest repayments, then you're at like you're getting that money, access to that money tax free, essentially.
Exactly.
But at some point, you know, unless
if the yield covers the interest, then it's like a zero cost to you, apart from expenses and things like that, and fees and whatever. Sorry to interrupt.
But at some stage, if you sell the property, like you can't get away.
You eventually pay capital gains when you sell it.
Eventually, you know what I mean?
That's how they get you. Yeah, you eventually. Although maybe you never have to sell it. Maybe you just do the liquid loans, never selling thing, and you just never sell your real estate, and then you just always have. Maybe that's not a great idea.
Well, even if you never sell it, what happens happens? Eventually, your kids get it. And I'm not sure what the rules are over here, but I think you can inherit stuff tax-free in Australia.
Tax. That's true. That's good. They don't
have
inheritance tax, as far as I know.
I wouldn't expect that to stay the way it is, mate, for much longer. I think they're going to go hard on that, you know.
Sure, but we can't control that. That's in the future. But one thing I would say, though, even if you don't sell it, so we're talking about having a primary residence that you pay off, additional investment houses that you could maybe have on interest only, whatever, and then so the rental yield covers the mortgage interest on that, so they're sort of neutrally geared, and then when the asset appreciates, effectively you could sell it. But what can happen is that if you eventually pay off your primary residence, right, then you can switch your investment properties to P&I, like principal and interest, pay down those ones, ideally pay off all your houses, be completely debt free, and then what do you have? You have a house that you own, and then multiple houses that just generate yield. So you have, like, in terms of a superannuation, you're just getting paid rental income from multiple houses, and you're not doing shit because you've paid them off. So that yield is just coming in the form of rent. So that's good. I like that in terms of a superannuation kind of like.
It's also a secure way to. It's also very secure. Like that's a very stable way, like type of yield in Australia. Like especially if you're in the capital cities. You know, if you're in, I know for sure in Melbourne, which is where I'm from this state. If you're residential properties there's a lot of competition to get into them, so you're pretty much guaranteed that you're always going to have a tenant. In Victoria, you're pretty much guaranteed, and as long as they don't bring in laws where you're not allowed to put up the rent or anything like that. Because in Victoria, you can't kick people out, right? You can't kick people out.
Yeah, it's heading that way. Unfortunately, it's getting weird.
It is that way already in Victoria.
Oh, okay. Well, not in my state, but
no.
Now there's some interesting laws getting passed about you can only up the rent every year and stuff like that, like once per year. I don't think they've introduced it yet, but yeah, so I guess what I just wanted to address one thing that was in the chat earlier, and I think it was Lockstock, and he was saying, sounds like everyone's planning to buy in 2025. To sell in 2025. And that, in this instance, when I'm talking about selling crypto or whatever, at the top of a bull market and paying off, real estate or whatever, yes, I might be selling some crypto in 2025, 100%, and maybe lots of other people are. But if it does dump as well, like a whole bunch of people dumping, I might be buying as well. So it's because of that cycle thing where it's like within the context of the cycle, if if people try and front run that 2025, hyperball phase, and it turns out that it's sort of mid 2025, maybe by the end of 2025, prices will be wrecked because heaps of people will have tried to front run it and sell it. And that might be, a good buying opportunity. And then, so if people have got like 10-year stakes and things like that, then they don't care what's happening in 2 years' time because their stakes don't end for 10 years. So they might actually be buying when the price is wrecked. So just because, I might be selling or whatever, and other people might be in 2025, doesn't mean that they're not also buying. Like, because, it's like in terms of cycles. I don't know if I explained that very well, but that's just full disclosure. I do sell crypto, but I also buy crypto.
I mean,
I bought earlier today, man. I was literally buying today. So, these things happen.
Well, that's
what else
good,
we
man.
got here?
It's things seems, historically speaking, things seem pretty low. The aim of the game is to buy low and sell high. Yeah.
So people forget that. They're like, oh my God, Twitter is like negative and everyone's down and depressed and the price is bad. And it's like, well, you know what to do. Buy the motherfucking dip. Like, I don't know. It's just like
DCA.
People get too down on it. It's like,
all those.
You got to buy the blood. Like, you got to buy the depression. People are like whining on Twitter or whatever. It's like, I don't know. Just need to harden up, I reckon.
Absolutely. They should harden. They should harden the hell up.
It's like January 5 and I'm not rich yet. What's going on? It's January 5, people.
Mate, I've really enjoyed chatting to you. I actually have to head off. It's been
no dramas.
Been an awesome chat. Now, tell me, are we taking a week off next week, or what's the deal?
Look, I'm going down you're not around. South. Yeah, I'll be on holiday, down the beach. So, anyone is free to take the reins and do the happy hour. So you're most welcome. Tangent, if he's floating around. Who else? A Hex Enthusiast, Base Radian, Bluey, I think Hex Enthusiast
Hex Enthusiast was also away next week, I think.
I think you're right.
But why don't you, if you pop it in the chat and then see if anyone wants to perhaps join. Otherwise, maybe we take a well-deserved break.
We can take a week off. Does us down the beach, back in 1 week. Like, I mean,
and I want to see Dozza with a bit of a tan, mate. Okay, I want to see Dozza with a bit of a tan.
I don't go in the sun much, to be fair. So I am a bit pale. That's a funny story.
If you're anything like me, when you get into the sun, you go red. That's pretty much what I do. I
have a good friend who's Italian, and we were about to get in the pool. I took my shirt off, and he's like, "Bro, you're so white. Like, why are you? Do you not go out in the sun?" Because he's like a concreter, like out in the sun all the time. So he's like full dark. He's got that olive skin that just doesn't burn.
He's got that southern Italian, southern Italy, genetics.
And so he's like, bro,
my family, some of my family have those genetics. I do not, however.
I don't have that. No. So he was like, bro, why are you so white? And I was like, oh, well, I'm inside like a lot. Like, so at work, I'm always inside. And he goes, your boss needs to get you one of those infrared lamps at work. So you can at least get some UV, And I was like, thanks, UV, man. Yeah. Thanks for that. So, hopefully get a bit of tan, go down, beach weather. But so, I think with the Hex conference next week, there's going to be no shortage of like streaming going on because it's like 4 days of Hex conference. And I think I'm on day 2 for the social. But shout out to Matty Allen and for people to check that out. There's going to be lots of content, so I don't think people really care.
So I'm going to be on with Klaz, you, I'm going to
Yes, that's right. I'll put the wig on.
And the other person I
That's
saw
funny.
who I recognized was Brizology.
Oh yeah,
So
Briz is funny. I like him. He's always got some jokes in the
yeah,
chats
Briz is
and
one
shit.
of the first people I ever streamed with on.
Oh really?
I think like the first time I jumped on Discourse Syndicate, I think, was with Kinetics, Dollar Cost DCC. I think he was Litecoin Moses back then, and
Litecoin Moses.
and
What? Oh wait, are you talking about DCC?
And Brizology. So those they were the four people. Like it was us four at the end of a stream. I think I jumped on for like 10 minutes or whatever. That was like one of the first times I jumped on Discourse Syndicate. That was a long time ago. That was in 2020 for sure.
Yeah. Briz has been around for ages. He's a funny guy. I love funny comments in chats and things like that, and he's always got some good ones. So g'day Hexadelic, how you going? But yeah, if you've got to disappear, then that's no dramas as well.
I gotta go, mate. I gotta head off.
That's
big
cool.
shout out to everyone in the chat. Yep, we won't see you next week. We'll see you the week after. But Dozzo, mate, I have to head off. Thank you very much.
That's cool. I was going to talk about a couple of quick things just after you go.
No worries.
Yeah, I'll catch you in 2 weeks.
Take it easy, mate. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, 43 OG. See you, mate. Okay, cool. Yeah, that was fun. So I just wanted to quickly chat about a couple of things that I was going to bring up that didn't sort of I didn't get time to. So there was a couple of things here. I'm just going to go through this real quick, like just so people like know what I'm talking about. But yeah, apparently Tether just minted $1 billion. So I think this was a Watch a Guru thing. Yeah, I'm not quite sure, and maybe I should have asked 43. But I know that Tether can just mint more. But this is effectively like the Reserve Bank just printing more money, like quantitative easing. So I'm not quite sure how they justify just printing $1 billion USDT. But it could only be bullish, you would think, if there's more money in the system, although everyone just got diluted in theory because they're not actually backing it although apparently they do have reserves for Tether. So anyway, not quite sure. There was another thing is someone recently on Twitter was talking about someone had some USDT that someone like in their family, they thought they'd been hacked or whatever. And it was like a long story. And so one of the things that I realized when I looked on chain was that it was fake USDT, right? So someone had called a token USDT, and it had a different token address. And it just reminded me for people to be aware of spoofed tokens. So you can create an ERC20 token that has the same name as another token, and people like malicious people can airdrop this to any kind of wallet. So in this case, the person had received, I think it was like 506,000 USDT. It's like $500,000 USDT, but it was obviously the wrong contract address. And in those tokens, sometimes they can edit, like in the ERC20 code, they can edit the part that the transfer function, so that you can actually send it from that wallet. So the original sender can actually send it out of that wallet. So this guy was confused because it looked on chain as if there was like someone had been hacked. And I was like, actually, they got scammed initially because they thought that they had proper USDT. So it's funny how sometimes the you have like a magic trick or something, and it's like the trick at the end is like the final reveal, and it's like, oh no, the $500,000 left the account. It's like, but really the trick was at the start where they made you think that you even had it to begin with. It's like, classic deception. So just be careful, especially with like coin tracking software like Coinly or whatever. Sometimes you can see that, you go, oh, hang on, what did I send, this amount of USDT or do USDC or Hex or whatever. Doesn't matter the token. It's probably unlikely to be Hex actually, but sometimes you see these stable coins and they're not the real contract address. So always check contract addresses. If you're not sure how to do it, go to Deck Screener. If in this case, like if you just literally just put in USDT, actually, I think I looked up when I was trying to find it. I was just like, what about wrapped ETH, like USDT? With that would be like a huge amount of liquidity. Yeah, $38 million. So it's like, I'm pretty sure this is the legit one. And you can go to CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko or whatever. And I think I did, but you can actually just get the contract address there. So, yeah, that was one thing I wanted to just make sure people are aware of. What else? Oh, while we're here, let's just have a quick look at the Pulse price. So, yeah, this is what I was saying. Like, it's a bit of a dip here. And so this is like me buying the dip. But yeah, I mean, we'd already wicked down to like 4046 down here. So it's not that low. But there was certainly an opportunity here. Some people were EESing or whatever on Hex, and it was getting routed through Pulse, I think. And then so if you look at the Hex price in PLS, this is interesting in the sense that, the Hex ratio to PLS started off at like 100 pulse per Hex, went up to 242 pulse per Hex, and then came down to, well, it's currently at about 150 pulse per Hex. So there's different ways you can think about this. Either that this trend line was broken here and then broken again and then broken again. So it looks like it's rolling over. And I've talked about this in the past. So it's possible that Pulse is going to continue to outperform Hex. Or you could think about it in terms of a range bound. And, maybe because this is a strong support here where it just wicked down to this ratio here of 140 pulse per Hex. It could be that it's just going to bottom out here and then, head up back to that 250 pulse per Hex. So in terms of optimizing your bags, sometimes swapping between these assets, even though they're highly bonded in their liquidity and they sort of tend to go up and down together, some of them do outperform, like one of them will outperform the other at different times. So you can kind of trade that. So I'm not sure if this is approaching a time where it's going to start to bottom out, and then it would be, if you wanted to put a small percentage of your bags that you wanted to trade into Hex, then you'd be buying the bottom of that Hex Pulse ratio. But yeah, maybe it's going to continue to go down, and then you actually want to have it in Pulse. So I don't know, but it's something to keep an eye on. I think we talked about Hex Scout being awesome, Go Pulse, that sort of stuff. I've noticed that the VanEck ETF thing is just, I've done some more applications for the SEC for their spot Bitcoin ETF. Also, Grayscale, I believe, have done a similar thing, filing for registration of securities with the SEC for spot Bitcoin ETF. So I suspect it's not just going to be the BlackRock spot BTC ETF that's going to get approved by the SEC. it could actually be a whole bunch of them. It could be BlackRock, VanEck, Grayscale. So it looks to me like these guys are getting their shit together for that. And it's kind of funny how it's like, oh, if the BlackRock ETF, Bitcoin ETF gets rejected, then the price is going to go down. And then if it gets accepted, well, then it's a sell the news. So then the price is going to go down. And it's like, hang on, you can't have it both ways. Like, is there not like a bullish case for that you're not considering? So yeah, people just seem to be just, seeing red candles and then just putting their emotions into it, which is just, I don't think a good idea. I mean, Bitcoin went what, from 45K down to now 43.8K. Where, like, it's 0.6% down. So I think maybe people were just, so bullish on 2024 that they're like, any kind of red candles is like rage quit, flip the desk, fuck this, like, I'm not rich, it's January 5. But yeah, you got to keep buying the dip, I think, until it no longer dips. And then you get to sell the peaks. What else we got here? Best codeology. Yes, there is no second best. I like that. Will Adam Stokes be at the conference? I don't know. Stokesy had a really good interview with Klaus the other day. He's a really interesting guy, and he has some really good insights. So I hope he does. Yeah, I really like to listen to him. Trade Bitcoin, Litecoin for Hex. You can do whatever you want, bro. JQ public. Yeah, whatever you think is a good idea. What's your 2024 theme? Much the same, just, try not to emotionally, try not to invest emotionally and invest with your brain, and that sort of thing. I think we've always sort of done that. Bullish case for BTC once Wall Street is in. That's a good question. Yeah, I think sometimes you can retrofit narratives to price action however you like. And I've seen this in 2017 and things like that. People always have an idea where they're like, oh, the price is going up. Oh, it's because of Chinese New Year. Like, end of Jan, Chinese New Year, Year of the Dragon, like, let's go, and it's like, you can make up any narrative you want. Like the price, like people in China are going on holidays, therefore the price is going to dip. It's like, it may or may not, that may not be the reason as well. So sometimes, like at the moment, the narrative is ETFs, and that's why the price is going to go up. But it might not be. It might be the halving. And I have a little bit of a pet hate when people say halvening when I think it's halving, but that's just a little bit of OCD for you there. But yeah, with the halving, like it could sometimes after the halving, the price dips. Like I've seen that, like not much, but it can, and it's a huge sell the news event as well. So consider these possibilities. Like use your brains to, consider all possibilities. Like it may not go the way that people are thinking, and that's the whole shout out to Somi, where he's always been contrarian and that sort of stuff. Sometimes you have to fade the crowd a little bit, but you got to be a little bit careful that you don't be so contrarian to everything that you have like an investment thesis and that everyone thinks agrees with you, and then you go, well, it must be wrong now because I have to be contrarian to the crowd. Like sometimes you just have a good investment thesis, like and then it plays out how you think it's going to play out. So you got to be careful not to like second guess yourself, you know what I mean? And I've noticed with things like quality assets is that you can fade them, but quality assets, their demand can drop temporarily, but quality assets people always come back to the quality assets. And when they do, the price of it pumps. And it's like, oh, I should have known it was always, a good quality asset. So that's why didn't I, just because it was low doesn't mean it's any less quality of an asset. Like it hasn't gone down in its value proposition in any way. It's still really good. And one of the things, this is an analogy, because I used to do a lot of fantasy football when I was younger, like AFL. And I used to smoke people, like absolutely, like win it every year. And the reason why I stopped doing it was because, one, I felt bad because I kept winning at these comps, and like we were doing it for money. So I was like taking money from my friends, like winning at fantasy football every year. And then part of it was because I realized that it was fuck all money. Like it was like, even if it's like you're better off trading real world assets that you can actually make proper money on. But one of the good takeaways that I got from that fantasy football thing was that you would have these superstar assets, players like Gary Ablett Jr., and he would go out in the first quarter, he would sprain his ankle or something, and the price of that player would drop, and everyone would be like, oh, because he scored hardly anything for that game. And then because it was like an average over like a few games, his price would continue to drop because of the low score in the game. And then it's like, if people forgetting who Gary Ablett Jr. is, like, I'm gonna buy this player because he hasn't played in 4 or 5 weeks. Because when he comes back on the field, he's going to tear it up. And then for some reason, people just fading him, going, oh, well, he scored, he's got a low score or whatever. And you're just like, you've forgotten, these premium players, you've forgotten how good they are. So, yeah, I guess that's just a little like segue, I guess, into sometimes my investment thesis. Like, if you've got like a good performing asset that's like a really good asset in your mind and that you think it's underperforming, it's like, yeah, you don't lose sight of why you thought it was a good asset to begin with. Particularly if it's like, there's metrics of ways that you can prove why they are awesome. Yeah. So apart from, so that was a bit of a random tangent, but the bullish case for BTC. So I think there'll just be a new narrative. People will just fabricate some new narrative that people will FOMO into. And then when you see green candles, then people will buy it. I don't think it's anything, more complicated than that. Yeah. So, oh, wow. I just had that on the screen for that whole time. Okay, let me see if there was anything else. Oh yeah, bullish news. Maybe is that Hex is now being listed. So Hex on PulseChain is now being listed on CoinMarketCap. Hopefully CoinGecko's next, but just the fact that they're even showing the Hex on PulseChain price on CMC, and I think PulseChain and PulseX are also, on CMC, and just the fact that they're recognizing those assets, I think it's kind of cool. So yeah, people should possibly go on here and like add some comments and stuff, so that way you don't get like these soy boys having a cry about it, showing up in the comments, and you can actually see some cool bullish stuff in the comments. So yeah, I encourage people to do that if you can. Oh, speaking of bullish, last thing I will maybe shill is Free Mint Fridays, Tangang. They have these NFTs and things like that. Okay, upcoming collections. It looks like it's orange gooey. So yeah, shout out to Cookies. Oh, it looks like this is sold out. Yeah, so this was probably last week, but I think they'll do another one tonight. So they nearly always do. It's the Tangang Free Mint Fridays. One of the cool things that they did, I want to say Pulse app. Let Let me just see if I can pull this up. Oh, pulsemarket.app. Okay. So I didn't want to. Where? So yeah, one of the cool things that happened the other day is shout out to Tangent, who's an OG legend. Everyone knows Tangent, all around good guy. He had this idea for a space where it was like you can just have $1 NFTs. So people were, came into the space and they were all, so they went to this pulsemarket.app. And if you go to listings, so there was like, this particular space, right, where everyone was just, listing. And you could go into the metaverse as well, that fully cross-on metaverse, and it had it up on the big screen. And yeah, people were just listing like $1 NFTs. Like, and it was like, so it was 55 OG, I think, which was about $1. And yeah, people could just put up their NFTs. And so it was a good opportunity for people who were like say, for example, like they had like a, like a blue gnome, and they wanted a green gnome, they wanted to have a purple gnome or something. And then so it's like if you weren't, keeping up to date with, all the giveaways and things like that, this was an opportunity to just basically get like $1 NFTs to, like, if you were like collecting these things. And yeah, they just took over the whole site. Like it was just like you had to keep like refreshing like listings, and they were just literally, just new NFTs were coming through. So it's like you could listen on the spaces, the Twitter space. You could chat to people, in the metaverse, and you could see all these NFTs that were just coming through. And you had to do like a little bit to sort of look at the collection to see, what was the actual collection about, like what was the floor price, and, is it like a genuine collection, or is it just some guy like just spamming the shit or whatever? And so like, but there was all sorts of weird stuff like yoblins and some cool shit. Like, so anyway, I thought it was really fun. Like it was a really interesting, and yeah, so this is why I bring this up, right? So this comment, anyone else feeling pretty despondent about our ecosystem right now? I 100% agree with you. I think that is the sentiment, is a lot of people thinking 2024 is going to be my year. It's going to be up only, and then now we're seeing some red candles. So it's just like people just like full despair and depression on Twitter. So I would say turn off Twitter, like go snorkeling or whatever. If you're in a cold climate, go skiing or some shit, like go and enjoy your life and just not worry about these things, because data and data. But yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about the sentiment, and sometimes buying the blood is a good thing if you can, use that cope in your brain to be like buying when people are, fearful and depressed, and then selling the euphoria. That's like an old, adage. You know who I'm talking about. So yeah, but people being down on the ecosystem, what I was just talking about was actually a really fun way to, just enjoy a bit of crypto. I'll leave that comment up because it's about what I'm talking about. So it was just a fun way of just like interacting with people, in the spaces, having a laugh, listening to like Cookies and Bullish and these guys just having a bit of a laugh. And it was sort of like, it was refreshing to have, a little bit of fun, and just you buy $1 NFTs, whatever. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. You can, but it's like, it's kind of cool. And some of them so there were some underpriced gems that were coming through, where it was like, this NFT might be worth, $100 or something. And if you could snipe it. So it was kind of fun. And yeah, just wanted to shout them out because I thought that was like fun and like something happy. So just like positive emotions, rather than people, you know, focusing on the negative. So hopefully they do that again, and then yeah, hopefully people can get on board and showcase their NFT collections or whatever as well. And it doesn't have to be for $1. You can put in stuff for like $100 or whatever. It's just a good opportunity for like a quick fire way to be like, oh, check this out, check this out. And plus you can interact with people as well. So yeah, shout out to those guys for doing that. I hope Tangent does it again. I think he said he's going to do it in 2 weeks. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. All right, I should probably stop ranting. Thanks everyone. Thanks for 43OG for coming on. Really appreciate the chats, and thanks to the chat. Yeah, hopefully we can do this again in 2 weeks, and check out the next conference, Matty Allen. That's going to be like 4 days of content. So there's going to be heaps of stuff there. Thanks very much, everyone. Rock on.